In early March, just as the pandemic was being named and when we were going into lockdown, I said to a friend, something about this feels familiar. And I realized that there was an echo for me from 10 years ago more. In 2007, I went through a period of illness and isolation as I underwent breast cancer treatment. So I'm going to start today by reading some poems from the collection that I wrote as I went through that experience. It's called Unaccountable Weather. And it was published by Press 53 in 2011. Finding the Heart. Under the hydrangea, a heart the dogs have found, a deer's left by a hunter in our woods. The carcass gutted where it lay, and I, having never seen anything like it, larger than anyone's fist I know of, fetched the shovel because it is so newly out of the body. I am sure it was beating only yesterday or the day before, and so bare beside the knife's fresh cut, and so powerful, somehow, as if it did the work of living still, that I cannot bear this awful cleaving from the breath it made, and I dig a small grave. The experience of illness and recovery from illness led me back to the other animals through my own animal body. This poem is called Dehydration, and it features a shape-shifting creature, the selkie, who inhabits and can travel back and forth between a human body and a seal body. Not just me braving another needle before dawn, but also that other, sinuous and sleek, my selkie self, so that for the moment I am only a sheath of human body, and yes, one step aside from the hospital room where they perform the kindness of saving my life. I am deep in the current, undulating torso, flippers tireless as the oars I need to take me back to shore, where I slide again toward my human skin, which waits on this foreign bed made familiar, accompanied and calm, because she swims seaweed and salt. I found that after cataclysmic change, I had the experience of loss and disorientation. It was so clear that I couldn't go back, and how I should go forward was also very murky. After cancer treatment. The language of this new country is broken branches. I am waiting to hear them speak. Having scraped together what music they could, here on the wind-swept ridge, they have come down in a gravity of leaves. Here is the solid ground surviving the storm. Here is the opened air, the more and the less of catastrophe, the nest unhatched, the clogged mouth of the burrow. I've only old words to call new things. I walk the littered path, which says kindling, which says seed and sap. One of the places I emerged was into a new kind of awareness of my relations with other animals. And that really has continued and has deepened as the time has gone on. These last two poems from this particular collection are about a friendship with a horse and a visit to the cave paintings in France. Struck. My neighbor saw him jump the fence in thunder, leave the pasture for the road, then back again, a flight across boundaries, as lightning struck and the rain came down, as it does these days, urgent, torrential. Struck by lightning, the oncologist said. That year I lost my breast to cancer, and I took to the neighborhood trails as if I could walk off the earth itself, walk through the valley of the shadow into another country, walk because my life depended on it, ceremony of one foot in front of the other. The tiny barn beside the road, the hay, and no one that I saw, although a hidden hand brought the oats, the hay itself. Each day he grazed the meager grass of not yet spring, and we stepped, one hoof, one foot, into the conversation we'd neither of us had, as if horses and humans had never spoken until we spoke. He gave me a coltish welcome. Once he knew I'd come most every afternoon, any absence of that give and take and a tug of longing appeared, unaccountably, as if a bond grew more robust than was necessarily wise. Or was it me, so newly shorn of the other life, I wasn't sure how much love might break me. We never thought saddles, but as if I held the golden bridle, he came of his own accord to the ritual of giving, nosing my coat and pockets, twice nipping the back of my hand when I withheld what he knew I'd brought but was slow to give. He taught me to offer an apple, not whole, but quartered and cored, no bitter seeds between us, and then his muzzle at my neck and ear. Peg, we could say I was your Gorgon, and Perseus held the surgeon's knife, but that's not how I'm telling the story. And you, no thoroughbred, are safe from our current Bellerophons who'd buy you in quarters, pump you with steroids, and race you so hard, so young, your forelegs would fracture like the S through the staves of a $sign. Call me your Amazon, both of us between worlds. Those months holding out, holding on, apple a day before grass grew green and lush, and whoever thought he owned you took you to another field. But not before I dreamed you crossed the threshold of my body, saw what you saw, the winged expanse, the fearsome flash. How am I to know if it was me leaving each day by the same turning up the lane as you watched? Once even rushing the fence as if you'd rather not part? How am I to know if when lightning struck, you leapt toward more of what we'd made, sanctuary on the mountain, splitting the earth open with one hoof, then another, leaving not a feather behind, but green dung in the road, the sign of a living, breathing horse who means to find me. So it's Pegasus that I'm evoking in that poem, and yet the symbol of the horse gives way to the actual horse, not the horse with feathers, the horse that leaves the green dung in the road. And the poem that lands the book, Unaccountable Weather, is called After the Cave Paintings. And it's based on what I had learned about how that big leap into art on the part of humans, that huge transition, had taken place and maybe been led by the other animals. After the Cave Paintings. Why do I stand unmoved, jaded as a tabloid, refusing astonishment? Not down on my knees, but sober as stone. Surely 19th century spelunkers, pranksters, or World War II resistance fighters passing hours in the belly of the mountain made these bison, these bearded horses. but carbon dating brings me to my senses. Whatever I can't take in, 1,500 generations, 32,000 years. Here's human memory on the horns of an ibex, our ancestors making it up from scratch. Is it all too near to where I've been? Birth and death, back and forth across that stuttering line. Illness, a long darkness with only a lantern, and my love's strong arm, the uneven, the unearthly underfoot. Stalactites make their own sense of water and limestone, as I'm to make something wholly new from the dripstone of another life. Just as well we're not as firmly anchored as we think. In the thinned air, the wavering light, easier to find that other self that knows as the animal knows, as the bears in these caves once knew. The first scratches on stone, their marks. Beyond light, standing upright on the old riverbed, so that daughters of Adam, sons of Eve, took up what the bears laid down, dark claw of limestone, and drew. My latest collection is called The Fisher Queen, and it's a new and selected poems. It came out in 2019, just last March, from Salmon Press in Ireland. And the Fisher Queen is a character that I created as an imaginary partner of the king in Parzival's medieval romance. And I gave her a voice and a story to tell. The Fisher Queen. Let's refresh this page, the publisher said. Widen the frame, reopen the window. And that's where they found me, beyond the usual margins, in the hinterland of the old text, camping out on the Grail Castle grounds with my solar oven and organic greens. In the beginning, I thought I'd have a role to play in the castle. I kept knocking at the door of the written page with my herbs and my stories. Mind you, I was always open to hypertext, to shuffling the narrative, ready to turn my face to each reader like a sunflower tracking the sun. But Wolfram only had eyes for my husband. And the king, well, how do you share that kind of power? Chaste ladies piling up like microwaves in a landfill. All the knights mum lest they lose their place at the table. I tell you, the book was bound and sold before I knew it. Given how the other women fared, I'm probably best out of that version. But I'll say this much. When Parzival returned to the castle, I advanced the action by stealth, gave him skullcap and valerian, herbs of forgetfulness, so he'd ask his question as if for the first time. I wanted the land alive again, as much as anyone, the wounds healed, including my own. I tell you this now because you've got your own wasteland, and you'll need help from unexpected quarters. New pages for the story. So Wolfram von Eschenbach is the author of that medieval romance, Parzival, and I address him in the poem. And it's a quest by a knight. Parzival visits the wasteland, and he has the power, though he doesn't know it, to heal the king, who is inseparable in the way of many legendary kings from the land and the health of the land. And he has a wound in his thigh. And rather than directly ask, or the obvious thing, the kind thing, maybe the heartfelt thing, what is it that ails you? Parzival demurs. And because he doesn't ask the right question, he goes off on a very long, arduous quest. And it's not till the end of the story that he manages to return with a bit more wisdom about what he needs to say. So here's the second part of that poem, and it's the poem that ends the section of new poems in this volume and leads into the selections from my other 6 books as new and selected poems volumes do. The Fisher Queen's Question. This land can be reclaimed, but not like you might think. There's no code to crack, and it's nothing to do with the body's sin or a purity no one can keep. So I fish in the lake and I fish in the moat. I keep chickens and goats. The castle serves up perfect peaches all seasons, but they're laced with pesticides. It's likely the very paper you're holding, blameless as it may seem, loosed mercury, arsenic, and lead in a living stream. Given the ways the story's been told, you'd think the king's was the only wound. But I lost one of my breasts in that battle for static perfection. The small pair of the other I'd like to keep. Finding the Grail is learning another beauty from a changing land that speaks. Why not fathom the language of earthworms, sing notes of jasmine, chant rhythms of light? And Anfortas? He's no longer king, but sometimes he meets me by moonlight. I don't want back in that fortress. Even with all its plenty, they still like their women with waists drawn in like ants. But here's me with all this advice, and I almost forgot to ask, what is it, friend, that ails you?